Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your language arts lesson for today. For today, you will need your poetry book. In addition, we have this dictionary, which you should be used to by now, right? A physical dictionary or online is fine, and paper, pencil, if you are using that to jot down thoughts about answers as you go. So again, make sure you're looking back for comments on your previous assignments. I'm having conversations with you guys about the things that we're doing in those other assignments to make sure you're looking back and seeing what kind of feedback you're getting from me, and potentially I'm asking for corrections. But with that in mind, we're moving into today's work. We've got two objectives today. So we've got this objective of identifying personification, which, as a reminder, personification occurs when something that is not human is described as doing human things. So the example that I've had is the wind whispered through the leaves. These notes should be in your white binder too for you to continue to refer back to. So we're going to be working on identifying personification and actually doing a little considering of the role of personification. And then also, in addition to our rhyme scheme, we're going to kind of consider the effect that the rhyme scheme has on the poem. This particular poem has two different rhyme schemes, and so we'll spend some time thinking about why, or how I should say, the rhyme schemes are affecting the way that the poem feels throughout. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to get into it, fifth graders. We're going to be looking at Woman Work, which is a poem by Maya Angelou, very famous Black poet. This is actually going to be the first of a few poems that we're going to be reading by Black authors, and it actually kind of is timed nicely. This is not usually the case. We don't usually do this. It usually ends up being in January that we have these units, but it kind of is timed perfectly that we're in the middle of Black History Month and now are reading some of these famous Black poets. And so Maya Angelou is a very well-known Black poet. So first, let's go ahead and get into our questions for today. And again, this is going to really relate directly to our, objectives for the day. So we want to make sure that we're clear on what we're looking for. So as usual, what is the poem title? The poem title is, we're going to capitalize and we're going to put in quotation marks. 2, who is the poem's author? The poem's author is. And then these questions about rhyme scheme. What is the poem's first rhyme scheme? And this is going to be in the first 14 lines of the poem. And then what is this poem's second rhyme scheme? That's going to be the rhyme scheme in the last 16 lines of the poem. And as we're going through and talking about these a little bit when we get into it, you'll get a little bit of guidance from me. Question 5, multiple choice, asks, what does the first stanza of the poem address? And remember, a stanza is kind of, you can tell because there's no spaces between the lines, right? And then what do the last 4 stanzas of the poem address? What is one quote that shows personification? So we'd say one quote that shows personification is blank. And we've already been practicing the second skill, 8. Why is this quote an example of personification? This quote is an example of personification because, and I'll guide you through that again. And again, that's very much like a test question that you might see, so it's good practice. Okay, so we see this lead up. So Angelou often writes to defend groups that are undervalued or underrepresented. So this idea that it's a group that is not does not get as much value or representation in the wider world. And so 9A asks, who does Angelou seem to be defending in this poem? 9B, why does Angelou seem to think that this group is undervalued or underrepresented? And yes, we're going to restate these questions. So 9A, Angelou seems to be defending blank in this poem. 9B, Angelou seems to think that this group is undervalued or underrepresented because. Okay, next, consider the rhyme scheme in the first 14 lines. How does this rhyme scheme match what is being described in these lines? So this rhyme scheme matches what is being described in these lines because, and then consider the rhyme scheme in the, this should say, last 16 lines. It's not a day of looking at a form without me finding a mistake in it. Okay, the last 16 lines, how does this rhyme scheme match what is being described in these lines? This is a little bit of a tricky question. I'll guide you through it, but I mean, it's good to know that it's a little bit of a stretch question for us, okay? And then 12, what is the noun form of the following entry word? So looking at this dictionary entry, and again, refer back to your notes when necessary. What is the noun form of that entry word? So fifth graders, we're going to get into reading our poem now. So you want to make sure you have your book open. We're going to be looking at page 2, and we're going to read through this twice to listen, and then we'll jump right back in and get into these questions, and we'll do some of the work together. And again, we've kind of been like workshopping it, right? So if you're working along with me, you should be able to pause and fill in answers as we go. Woman Work by Maya Angelou. I've got the children to tend, the clothes to mend, the floor to mop, the food to shop, then the chicken to fry, the baby to dry. I got company to feed, the garden to weed. I've got shirts to press, the tots to dress, the can to be cut. I got to clean up this hut, then see about the sick and the cotton to pick. Shine on me, sunshine, rain on me, rain. Fall softly, dewdrops, and cool my brow again. Storm, blow me from here with your fiercest wind. Let me float across the sky till I can rest again. Fall gently, snowflakes, cover me with white, cold, icy kisses. Let me rest tonight. Sun, rain, curving sky, mountains, oceans, leaf and stone, star shine, moon glow, you're all that I can call my own. All right, let's read through that one more time before we get into kind of digging into the answers a little bit. So, Woman Work by Maya Angelou. I've got the children to tend, the clothes to mend, the floor to mop, the food to shop, then the chicken to fry, the baby to dry. I got company to feed, the garden to weed. I've got shirts to press, the tots to dress, the can to be cut. I got to clean up this hut, then see about the sick and the cotton to pick. Shine on me, sunshine, rain on me, rain. Fall softly, dewdrops, and cool my brow again. Storm, blow me from here with your fiercest wind. Let me float across the sky till I can rest again. Fall gently, snowflakes, cover me with white, cold, icy kisses. Let me rest tonight. Sun, rain, curving sky, mountain, oceans, leaf and stone, star shine, moon glow, you're all that I can call my own. All right, so here we go. I'm going to flip you back around. We're going to start working on our homework together. So the first question always in our poetry homework is, what is the poem title? So the poem title is, remember our quotation marks, remember our capitalization, and ending with quotation marks. So go ahead and fill that and pause and fill it in. 2 asks, who is the poem's author? The poem's author is, go ahead and finish that one. Number 3, this one's funky. We haven't seen a rhyme scheme like this, and I don't know if we'll see one like this again anytime soon. But what is the poem's first rhyme scheme? So first we have to set up our answer. The poem's first rhyme scheme is, if we're considering a stanza, this stanza, I've already kind of indicated in the question, is 14 lines long. And based on the rule that I've given you all about rhyme schemes, your rhyme scheme needs to have as many letters in it as there are lines in a stanza. So this first stanza has its own rhyme scheme. There's 14 lines in it. That means you need to have 14 letters in this rhyme scheme. So if we look at the last word of these lines, tend, mend, mop, shop, fry, dry, feed, weed, press, dress, cut, hut, sick, pick. What is this rhyme scheme? Every 2 lines rhyme. So if we're going to do this, we're going to say A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, F, F, G, G. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So again, this rhyme scheme is unique. It is different, and we're going to get into why, the effect that this seems to have on the poem. But that is our rhyme scheme for the first part of the poem. The second part, so what is the poem's second rhyme scheme? We'd say the poem's second rhyme scheme is blank. So fifth graders, I'm actually going to have you pause and work on 4, 5, and 6 on your own. Okay, I'm going to take a look and see what you did in your homework on these, but try and find the poem's second rhyme scheme, remembering, of course, that the rhyme scheme, the number of letters should match the number of lines in each stanza. And so for the second portion, we see 4 stanzas. Okay, so that's going to affect your rhyme scheme. Remember, looking at one stanza, that indicates how many letters should be in your rhyme scheme. 5 and 6, remember, we're kind of getting at, like, what is the first stanza about? What is it addressing? And then what are the last 4 stanzas about? What are they addressing? So you're going to pause. You're going to work on 4, 5, and 6. Come on back, and we'll chat a little bit about the next one. Okay, 7 asks us, what is one quote in this poem that shows personification? So first we have to restate our question. One quote in this poem that shows personification is what? Remember, this idea of personification is when you take something that's not human and describe it as doing something human or being involved in something human. So this is a little bit more subtle than our conversation about personification earlier in the week. It's not quite as obvious as daffodils dancing. But I want you to give it a try. What in this poem seems to show personification? So you're going to pause and fill this in, and then we'll come back and I'll walk you through 8. So 8, why is this quote an example of personification? So remember, we want to be looping the quote and the definition of personification into our answer. So this quote is an example of personification because, so we've restated the question. So you have to think about what is happening in your quote, okay? So we're going to be kind of, again, looping in this definition. So as an example of personification, because the non-human blank, you have to look at your quote for figuring out how to fill in that blank, is doing the human blank, or giving the human blank, or something, right? And this second blank might be a lot of words. It might be blank, 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 right? It doesn't have to be just one word. It might be multiple words. So this is going to be the structure for your answer. This quote is an example of personification because the non-human blank is doing the human blank. And again, your wording might be slightly different, but really we want to make sure we're putting that definition into our answer, that we're talking about something that is not human and how it's doing something human or behaving in a human way. Okay. All right. And again, I keep saying this, I'm hoping that you all are pausing as you go, whether you're writing this down in pencil and paper and then entering them later, or you're working along in the form. It's a great idea, really kind of workshopping our way through this. Okay, Angela often writes to defend groups that are undervalued or underrepresented. So the question is, who does Angela seem to be defending in this group? So we set up our answer. Angela seems to be defending blank in this group. And then, why does Angela seem to think that this group is undervalued or underrepresented? We'd say, Angela seems to think that this group is undervalued or underrepresented because, so I want you guys to give those a try. So who does she seem to be talking about in this group? And there actually could be more than one right answer to this question. Okay, who does she seem to be writing about or defending in this poem? And then what does she seem to think they need representation for, right? Why do they need to be defended? What is the treatment maybe that is given? Okay. Again, pausing as we go. I know I'm a broken record at this point, but all right. Rhyme scheme. We got to think a little bit about the rhyme scheme. So if you're thinking about the first 14 lines, how does this rhyme scheme match what is being described in these lines? So first, by setting up the answer, this rhyme scheme matches what is being described in these lines because you're going to finish this. But think about it. These first lines. I've got the children to tend, the clothes to mend, the floor to mop, the food to shop, the kitchen to fry, the baby, I said the kitchen to fry, then the chicken to fry, the baby to dry, I got company to feed, the garden to weed, I got the shirts to press, the tots to dress. So what is that feeling that's coming from that rhyme scheme? And we're seeing every 2 lines rhyme. What effect does that have on the poem? How does it match what is in those lines of the poem? What's being described, right? That first stanza. Think about what's being described in those lines or what it's about. And then think about how that matches these every 2 lines rhyming. Okay. Our second one, similar setup. This rhyme scheme matches what is being described in these lines because, and you're going to finish that. So how does it change, right? We see shine on me, sunshine, rain on me, rain, fall softly dewdrops, and cool my brow again. So think about kind of the effect that it has as we're seeing a shift in rhyme scheme. How does it affect pacing? How does that seem to go with what's happening in those last 4 stanzas? Okay. Now, admittedly, 5th graders, these are stretch questions, and I'm happy to ask these of you. I think that you are ready. I think that you're able to think about these and be able to come up with answers. Now, you might not feel 100% confident. There might be a feeling of like, I think I've got it right, but I'm not totally sure, and that's okay, right? That's okay when you're being given some challenging questions, when you're being stretched. There might be a little bit of a feeling of discomfort or, oh, do I have it right? And it's good, right? That means that you're being appropriately challenged. That means that you're being pulled and stretched to think in new ways. So what I really want is a thoughtful attempt. And we'll revisit it a little bit when we're having a discussion on Monday as we're moving into our next poem. But we'll talk a little bit about this previous poem. We'll talk about woman work and some of the thinking that is going into or behind, what the kind of thinking that you guys are putting into your answers to this question. So don't forget your 12th question is a dictionary entry question. So you'll have a multiple choice answer about that as well. So I'm excited. I like being able to ask stretch questions. I feel like it shows growth and it shows what you guys are learning and how you're doing. So give it your best shot. Use your most educated pieces of information to help you with those answers, and I'm looking forward to seeing your answers. So good luck. As always, if you have questions, come see me or send me a message, and I'm happy to support you. Thanks, 5th graders.